What's up guys? What I would do another video obviously taking a review of the Champions League quarterfinals. So my prediction was wrong. As I said before the first leg, I thought it would be Barcelona, PSG, Bayern Munich and Real Madrid in the semi-finals. However, I've been proven wrong on that because Arsenal have beaten Real Madrid and knocked them out, and Inter Milan have beaten Bayern Munich and knocked them out. I mean, to be honest, I do feel sorry for Villa. They really did kind of show up a little bit in that game on Tuesday night. Um, I think if they hadn't conceded those two goals, they may have stood more of a chance. I feel like although I'm not a Villa fan myself, I do feel like Unai Emery made a mistake in taking Marcus Rashford off. As when before they took Marcus Rashford off, it felt like Aston Villa had a lot of momentum there, and it felt like they could go on and actually score, potentially score at least one more goal. In that last half an hour of the game, it felt like that chance was there for Villa, but it felt like once they took Marcus Rashford off and they brought, Ollie Watkins on, it felt like all of the momentum that Aston Villa had was gone. It felt like that they just lost all of that momentum, and PSG obviously came back, came back into the game, and I mean, obviously, the thing that Villa have shown is that you can get at PSG. They're not unbeatable. I mean, Borussia Dortmund have shown that you can get at Barcelona and you can beat them. Barcelona didn't. Obviously, Borussia Dortmund and Aston Villa didn't win, but obviously didn't win overall. But they still won the second legs. Obviously, despite losing the first legs, they did well to win the second legs, despite the fact they didn't go through. Obviously, this is obviously a massive deal for Arsenal being in the Champions League semi-finals, one step further than they got last year. I mean, obviously they're one round away. They're basically one round away now from what would be their first Champions League final in 19 years. This is huge for them. PSG in the semi-finals. At least they've avoided Bayern this time. At least they've avoided Barcelona in the semis. Obviously, there won't be Barcelona versus Inter Milan in the semi-finals and Arsenal versus PSG. I mean, Arsenal. I mean, I think obviously it's definitely going to be. I mean, I feel like maybe Arsenal could win, and it probably might end up being Arsenal versus Barcelona in the in the final. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say who will be in the final. I mean, it's all very open at the moment. Um, I mean, obviously, at least Arsenal fans can actually laugh at the Liverpool and Man City fans and go, "Well, we did something that you weren't able to do." Because they've knocked Real Madrid out of the Champions League, which is something that neither Liverpool or Manchester City have been able to do. Liverpool have had a chance to knock Real Madrid out of the Champions League, they couldn't do it. Man City have had a chance to knock them out of the Champions League, they couldn't do it. But Arsenal have actually done that. Arsenal have actually done something that Real Madrid and Man City couldn't do. Obviously, Liverpool played Real Madrid in two finals and lost both times. Man City were obviously in the semi-finals against Real Madrid or quarter-finals, and they lost, despite the fact that I think they won the first leg and then they lost the second leg. But for Arsenal to win across two legs, to win 5-1 on aggregate, that is just unbelievable. Like, I think we all thought that obviously that Real Madrid would certainly turn up the pressure last night at the Santiago Bernabeu, but Arsenal stood their ground. Even though I'm a United fan, I still have to show that respect to Arsenal for this huge achievement. You know, but when a big when another big team when another team uh, makes this sort of gets this sort of achievement, I always show my respect to them because that's what you do. Even it's like no matter what team you support, it's always kind of nice to show that respect to the fans and to the other team itself. You know for for their achievement and what they for and when a team achieves something big like this, knocking out one of the best teams in the world from the Champions League. They deserve to be respected. They deserve to, they deserve to be proud of this achievement. I think the Arsenal fans should be very proud of what their club has achieved in the Champions League this season. Um, do I think Arsenal are going to go on and win it? I don't know. The Champions League is very open at the moment. It's a very hard one to predict this year. I bet my uncle was fuming because for weeks, even before the knockout stages had even taken, like even before the knockout stages had even taken place, he was adamant that Arsenal weren't going to get past Real Madrid. He kept saying to me that Real Madrid would batter Arsenal and knock Arsenal out of the Champions League, and he's just been proven wrong big time. As Arsenal have beaten Real Madrid across 2 legs, they've done something something he was adamant they weren't going to do. They've done something that even I didn't think they were going to do. Even I didn't think they were going to beat Real Madrid across 2 legs of the quarterfinals. I didn't think they were going to win 3-0 in the first leg and then go to the Santiago Bernabeu and score 2 more. Like, unbelievable. And Mikel Arteta should be proud of every single one of those players that he has in his squad because this is huge for them. They should be so proud of what they've achieved in Europe this season. I mean, yeah, their Premier League performances have been a bit shaky this season, but they've still really been absolutely incredible in Europe this season. It's still amazing that they've gotten to the semi-finals. I hope they do get to the final. I hope they do get a chance of winning it this year. Whether it's up against Barcelona, whether they're up against Inter Milan. We've already seen them beat PSG once this season. They beat PSG 2-0 in the group stages. So Arsenal have beaten PSG, so there's that little bit of history there, and it's a chance for PSG to get some revenge. And obviously, again, it's a challenge where Arsenal have got to be the better team across 2 legs of the semi-finals. But then you look at it and you're thinking, well, surely if they've beaten Real Madrid, surely they can beat PSG. Because obviously PSG are not, they're decent, but I don't think they're as good as Real Madrid. I don't think that. I wouldn't say that their squad, the PSG squad, is absolutely world class. And Aston Villa have shown that you can certainly beat them. Aston Villa have shown that you can certainly win. I think the away leg was. I don't know if Arsenal are away or at home in the first leg of the semi-finals against PSG, but if they're away against PSG, it could be a little bit tricky for them. Going away to Paris Saint-Germain is never easy. Everyone knows that. But I think they'll be okay at home against PSG. I think they'll be good. They will be good enough to win. This is just unbelievable. Like, I don't think anybody would have predicted this. On the start of the season, I don't think anybody would have predicted that. Arsenal were going to be in the Champions League semi-finals. I certainly didn't, never predicted that. There's so many things that have happened this season alone, both in Europe and in the Premier League, that nobody probably would have predicted before the season started. Nobody would have predicted that Man City weren't going to be in a title race. Nobody would have predicted that Nottingham Forest were going to be in the top four. Nobody would have predicted that Newcastle United were looking at a third place finish. They did beat Palace last night and have overtaken Forest and have gone third by I think about 2 or 3 points. So third place is still there all to play for Nottingham Forest. They've not completely missed out on a third place finish, but a fourth place finish would still be a huge achievement for them. Considering they finished one place off the relegation zone last season, to go from that to a fourth place finish in the to a top 4, possibly top 5 finish in the Premier League is unbelievable. And it shows how good, it shows the good work that Nuno Espirito Santo has done with them this season. You look at Chelsea; they've not been brilliant this season. Did anybody before the start of the season, predict that United and Tottenham would probably be finishing out the top 10? I don't think anybody would have predicted that. I don't think any United fan would have predicted that the season was going to go as bad as it has gone. But again, our performances in Europe haven't been brilliant, have been bad. You know, obviously we've got the second leg of the quarterfinals tonight, the home leg against Lyon. We've got to try and win that game. You know, I'm hoping that, although I don't think that will be the case, I'm hoping Onana is dropped for this game. I would start by India. I mean, I don't think by India is completely terrible. I mean, yeah, he did concede 4 goals against Newcastle the other day, but there you go. I mean, it's going to be a tough one. I mean, obviously we've got Joshua Xerxes out for he'll be out for several weeks, they've said, so it's a bit concerning. But it is what it is. I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing to see what happens in the Champions League semi-finals. Can Arsenal pull off a win against PSG? I mean, it's like I mean, if they were to beat PSG and Inter were to somehow beat Barcelona, you would think Arsenal could beat Inter, in the final probably. But I think the problem is, I think even if Arsenal beat PSG in the semi-finals, I don't know if they would actually be good enough to be. I mean, Dortmund have shown it can get at Barcelona and it can beat them. But are they? I mean, are Arsenal good enough to beat a Barcelona? But then again, you think, well, I mean, a lot of people will be looking at that now, thinking, well, they beat Real Madrid, so they should be able to beat, the three other teams that are still left in this competition. They should be able to beat a Barcelona. They should be able to beat an Inter Milan. They should be able to beat a PSG if they're able to beat a Real Madrid. I still can't believe they lost to Bayern Munich in the quarterfinals last year. This year they're beating Real Madrid in the quarterfinals. How can you lose to Bayern Munich in the quarterfinals one year and then beat Real Madrid in the quarterfinals across 2 legs the following year? But that shows that I mean, it's just incredible. I think Arsenal were it shows a lot of determination from Arsenal. You know, I think that's what I like. I mean, although I'm a United fan, that's what I do like about Arsenal. They don't go down without a fight. You know, they fight and fight and fight until the very end. They don't allow teams to walk all over. You know, you don't see that. I mean, you used to see that. A few years ago. I think if you go back a few years ago, you wouldn't have looked at Arsenal as being a team that was good enough to beat Real Madrid. You would have looked at this game at this time and gone, yeah, Arsenal were getting absolutely battered by Real Madrid. But things are different now. I mean, Real Madrid haven't been brilliant in Europe this season. They've not been world class, per se. I don't even think they actually. I mean, they didn't automatically qualify. They had to actually get into the round of 16 via the playoffs. Obviously, they beat Man City in the playoffs and got through. They could very easily have gone out. Man City had that chance, didn't take it. Man City weren't able to. Then Arsenal have done something that Man City couldn't do. They've done something Liverpool couldn't do. And that's something that, Arsenal fans can kind of hold over those that support Liverpool and Man City is the fact that they've achieved something that Man City and Liverpool were ultimately not able to achieve, and that is knocking Real Madrid out of the Champions League. I know Liverpool have beaten Real Madrid in the Champions League this season, but they didn't knock them out. I don't know if Man City have ever beaten Real Madrid in the Champions League, but this is a huge achievement for Arsenal, and they deserve to be proud of that. I take my hats off to them for that performance across 2 days. Really, really showed a lot of guts and a lot of, strength and a lot of courage to get through that game and win that game, obviously went and settled the tie, obviously scoring that late goal, Gabriel Martinelli, you know, this is just a huge, huge moment for Arsenal and something that they deserve to enjoy, a moment that they deserve to celebrate, a moment that they deserve to enjoy, because it's a moment they've earned. It's a moment that they deserve to be proud of. They deserve to be so proud of this moment, the fact that they've beaten one of the best teams in Europe in the across 2 legs in the UEFA Champions League quarterfinals. Every one of those players that played across the 2 legs of the quarterfinals should be so proud of themselves. They absolutely deserve to be proud of themselves after that performance. I bet Real Madrid are gutted. I bet Carlo Ancelotti is gutted. I mean, Real Madrid are the defending champions as well. This is the thing, they've knocked the holders out of the Champions League. That makes it even better, is that Arsenal have knocked the holders out of the Champions League in the quarterfinals. Not even in the semi-finals, but the quarterfinals. They've knocked the holders of the Champions League out in the quarterfinals. Real Madrid made it to the final and won it and won the final. Won the final last year. This season they couldn't even make it to the semi-final. They get knocked out by Arsenal, a team that a lot of people probably predicted to get battered by Real Madrid in the quarterfinals. I think a lot of people, there were a lot of Arsenal haters that probably predicted that was going to happen, but I don't think anyone who hates Arsenal would be ashamed to admit that they thought Arsenal were going to get battered. I think a lot of Arsenal haters predicted that, but all of the Arsenal haters today will be swallowing their pride. If they predicted Arsenal were going to get battered, and they've been proven wrong big time by Arsenal. Really, really huge respect to them though. So I thought I'd give my thoughts on that and just say well done, congratulations to Arsenal for making it past, getting past Real Madrid. Doing something that Man City and Liverpool weren't able to do. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this little video. Thought I would give my thoughts on this year's on the Champions League quarterfinals. I'll see you for another video very soon. Bye bye.